Okay, I have 7 o'clock. Welcome to our regular monthly meeting on this June 2nd, 2025. I would like to call it to order and roll call, please.
Mullins.
Here.
Hanlon.
Here.
Noggle. Spoon.
Here.
Wagers.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any opportunity? Okay, for the public to be heard, we do not. So moving on to the Spirit Award.
Okay, let me put on my old lady glasses. I hit 44 and have to wear these spiffy things, so bear with me. All right, can I have Kathy Davis and JJ Smith up here, please? Did he? Oh, well, come on up. We love Miss Canterbury, so we're glad you're here tonight, too. All right, well, you had some wonderful things said about you by Principal Smith here, so I'm going to. And chocolates, what? I like being paid in chocolates, so.
Well, your superintendent gets pennies.
It's true. Or ducks, right? All right, well, I'm going to read what was written about you, and it says, Kathy Davis stepped up when we needed her the most. The Freshman Academy had some, unfortunate circumstances with health issues in our algebra department. Every member of our algebra department was facing some type of health issue, and it was causing them to miss some time at school. Kathy Davis was informed of the issues and contacted me to see if there was anything that she could do to be of assistance. I had the privilege of working with Kathy at the 9th grade center, and she was an outstanding teacher. So obviously, I was thrilled to hear from Kathy because I knew that her teaching ability and her willingness to see all students succeed would be an asset to our staff and students. She started volunteering and assist the algebra classrooms, which allowed us to put an experienced certified teacher in front of our students. I can never repay Miss Davis for the amount of time and effort she has put into our algebra department. I will be forever grateful, and I would like to recognize her efforts. Our driving principle at CPFA is we will do what is best for all students. Kathy helped us stay the course. So that's what we look for in an employee, a staff member, is just an outstanding one. So we appreciate you and all that you've done. So thank you very much. Would you like to say anything? Just right there. Well, I'm going to give you your award because I'm kind of holding it hostage.
Well, thank you so much.
There you go, and congratulations. And we're so proud to have you on staff. Come on in. Hold on. You in the middle.
They're going to make me get comfortable talking in front of y'all. All right, can I have Boston Cassie? Did I say that right? Okay. And Lisa Longsdale, are you here? Hey. All right, so you were nominated for the Spirit Award from Miss Lisa Longsdale, and this is what she had to say about you. Boston has been a partner with our Special Olympics team for the last 3 years. He is an absolute blessing to our program. His first year with us, he came home from the state games, cleared out all of his old baseball trophies, and brought them to the school to give to our athletes. He made sure there were enough for each athlete to receive a trophy. While at the state games this year, the coaching staff was approached by the volunteer umpires at our first game. They were quite impressed with Boston and his ability to interact with not only the athletes on our team, but those of the opposing teams as well. They noted his big heart and his efforts to make sure each athlete had the chance to be on a base. The officials felt he deserved recognition or an award for his kindness and inclusion of all the athletes. This is not something the officials have the ability to do through the SOOK program, so we decided to intercede for them at the district level. So we are so proud of you, Boston, for setting an example for others, both on and off the field of play. It is extremely exciting from the coach's standpoint to be approached by someone in this setting and hear the praises of one of the students' partners. Thank you, Boston, for showing others what it means to be a Sandite. So thank you so much for proudly representing our school at the Special Olympics, and it's because of people like you that make our entire school community shine brighter. Do you have anything you would like to say? No? Okay. Well.
Great job, Boston.
I enjoy this so much. This is so cool when we get to do this. Let me just read this first because I just want to say what this is. This is the Sandite Pacesetter Award. And we give these out to superstars all the time. And what it says is Sand Springs Public Schools proudly presents this certificate to, and it's got your name on it, for outstanding achievements and accomplishments as a Sand Springs Public School employee. And we have a boatload of them. But first, before we present the ones here, I want to invite our Assistant Superintendent of the Year in the state of Oklahoma, Sean Beard, to please come and join me. Sean made this nomination for these folks, and I want to read what he wrote, and then we'll let Sean read a bit more about it, and then we'll bring everybody up, and we'll pass out the awards. But it takes a team to do what we do at Sand Springs Schools. And one of the many challenges that we have is testing. And Sean kind of oversees that with the help of outstanding educators. And Sean's, his comments, he says, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge a group of educators who truly went above and beyond for our students in this spring. Our building test coordinators took on an immense responsibility, one that extends well beyond their regular duties as educators. The planning and coordination of testing schedules, ensuring that all of the teachers who proctored testing were trained, and the meticulous paperwork required to ensure every one of our students was tested for state assessments is a monumental task. The role brings with it added expectations and significant stress, and they navigated it all with remarkable skill and dedication. Simply put, we could not have done it without them, and their hard work was absolutely essential in our successful testing season. We are incredibly grateful for their commitment to our students and our district. I'm going to ask this group to come up and join me. We got Reagan Burnett, Tricia Lawrence, Jennifer Smith, Mindy Lee, Stephanie McAllister, Lisa Banks, Kristen Simpson, Jana Purcell, and Ashley Wise. All right. And Sean, I'll ask you if you want to add anything to this, and we may even let them say something about the jobs that they do.
So I will add that in a year where Miss Nancy Ogle was our district testing coordinator this year, and I'm the backup. I was the backup. And when Miss Ogle fell ill and she was out, those duties fell to me, and I felt like it kind of burdened these ladies a little bit to have to deal with me, and I thought that they deserved an award just for that. But in addition to that, it does take a lot of work to do all the scheduling, making sure everybody's done their training, making sure everybody's turning in their certificates, and then on the back end, all the reporting that goes into it. So with my handicap that I had as district testing coordinator backup, I appreciate everything that they did to make sure that this went smoothly. And I'm going to also say that I have to owe Jay Roeder a debt of gratitude as well, because I called him quite a bit, and I bought him a couple of Starbucks. Oh, I bought him one Starbucks gift card for that, and I think I still owe him one. So Anyway.
I'll put somebody on the spot. How many tests did we administer? Do we know? Do you know? 5,000?
Yeah, thousands.
5,000 students take this test, right?
Not all of them. But like every 11th grader takes 3. Every 8th grader takes 5. And then 3rd, 5th, 8th.
We only have 15 11th graders that didn't test this year.
Wow.
It's a lot of tests, and there's a lot of rules surrounding it, and you can't misstep either. And so, not only are they carrying that, pulling it off, but you also, it comes with some added stress because if you make a mistake, there's this old reporting. But it's a big, they're making a huge deal.
I think the thing that they enjoyed the most out of it were the 3-hour trainings that we had to do with the state. So
And the rules like you can't breathe if you're holding the test.
And we all know that when the students are taking the test, they're so excited to have that opportunity to take the test. So, thank you all. Pretty amazing for what you do every day, and then to step up and do this extra component, which is required. You know, sometimes we wish that it wasn't, but it is, and we're going to continue to do that. So, anybody want to say anything? Now's your chance. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, I'll give you this too.
Okay, that concludes the awards part of this meeting. If you guys would like to skedaddle, you are more than welcome to, or you can stay for the really fun part of the meeting, the business. I just want to say that we had more people here to like support the people who got awards than we had people getting awards, and I just think that that's super cool that we had a lot of support. So just want to point that out.
People want to support their colleagues. There is no doubt, and it makes my heart happy. So at the pleasure of the board, if we could move items 55 and 56 to the top of the agenda before we go over my report. Zach Robinson wasn't able to be here tonight because we changed kind of the plan on him in the calendar. So I'm going to call him, put him on speaker in case you guys have any questions. But basically, we're discussing and approving or not approving, hopefully approving, the sale of the bonds that were submitted today by bid. So I'm going to call Zach, hopefully put him on speaker, and hope you can hear this.
Hello?
Hey, Zach.
Hi.
You're on speaker, and I have you, hopefully, so the board can hear you, but we're getting ready to go ahead and discuss items 55 and 56, the sale of the bonds. Do you mind holding that?
I can do that.
That'd be great.
Can I make some phone calls?
You can make some phone calls. Sean's being a joker. I'm going to make some phone calls. So item number 55, Zach, the way I understand it, is that would be relative to the $4.160 million general obligation compliant purpose bonds, of which we would be awarding to the lowest bidder.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly right. So we've got a good evening, everybody. I appreciate your time. I'll try to be as efficient as I can and give it all back to you here pretty soon here. So the first action item is going to be awarding this series of bonds to the low bid, which was the R.W. Baird out of Milwaukee. I believe you have the bid tab in front of you. They bid 3.536786. And I got to tell you, it was a very close sale. You can see the Davidson firm out of Colorado was right there at 3.56. So a very close sale. We are looking at the net interest cost, which is the second to the farthest right column, which shows you the total interest cost on the bonds to you. And so we're awarding on a low cost, low interest cost award here. So it's a very straightforward action item here. We are awarding to Robert W. Baird and Co. Inc. at an average rate of 3.536786. I will tell you that when we're doing our bond planning back kind of at the beginning of the year, we were using estimates that were closer to 4%. So, the markets have stabilized since March, April, which has been a good thing. Demand is back, supply is back. So I'm very happy with the outcome here on this sale. It was a narrow sale, and the rate, I think, is under our projections. So a really good outcome here.
So we would entertain a motion, Madam President, if you're ready.
Yes.
Madam President, I make a motion that we entertain a motion to approve the general obligation combined purchase bonds for Series 2025 in the amount of $4,160,000 to Robert W. Baird and Company Incorporated with the bid that was received this morning.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Can we vote, please?
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Number 56?
Yep. Item number 56, Zach?
What about the
So
resolution?
the second action item for this series of bonds is the resolution that authorizes the issuance. And so this is your final action item as a board to formally authorize the issuance of this bond issue. You do this virtually every time you do a bond issue. This action item is very similar in terms of form and substance. And so we are finalizing all of the outstanding items on the bond sale. There's the form of the bond itself. In the resolution, we are allowing for the annual tax to repay the bonds. We are finalizing the offering statement that was sent out before the bonds were sold, and we're fixing all of the details that prior to the bond sale this morning were not yet known. And so we're just going to fix all those, finalize all those, and formally authorize the issuance of this series of bonds.
That's Part B of 55, correct?
That's
55B.
Yes.
Yeah, we should still be on 55B, I think.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt a resolution providing for the issuance of the $4,160,000 general obligation combined purpose bond series 2025 by Independent School District Number 2 of Tulsa County, Oklahoma. Authorize that an election duly called and held for such purpose, designated bond for certain provisions of the Internal Revenue Code, deeming preliminary official statement final of the proposed SEC Rule 15-C-2-12. Affirming the school district's intention to assist underwriters in complying with the SEC Rule 15C-212B5, prescribing form of bonds, providing for registration thereof, providing levy of an annual tax for the payment of principal and interest on the same, and fixing other details of the issue. And I had that memorized. I was not reading that, by the way. So.
Me too.
I don't believe a word of that.
Motion, need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, can we vote, please?
Let me just ask Zach real quick, are these the tax exempt bonds, Zach, or are these the tax bonds? I just sometimes get confused
Yes,
on
great
those.
question. These are the tax exempt bonds.
Okay, very
Okay.
good, thank you.
Yep.
Vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Okay, number 56.
Sorry. Okay, Zach, you're on.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So we're halfway home. So we also had the bond sale for the $840,000. So these are the taxable bonds, and so the interest to the bondholders is a tax item. And so, because of that, the yields on the bonds are higher, just because they have to give some of that back, when they pay their taxes. And so this is a very, I think, expected spread from the tax exempt bonds to these bonds, which again are the taxable series. And so the yields on these, I think, are kind of in line with what I was expecting. So we have 6 bids here, so there's a little bit more, I guess, demand from some of the bond firms for some of the taxable bonds. So we got 6 bids. Northland Securities, very active firm in Oklahoma, especially on the taxable school bonds. I see them all the time. Get a lot of solid firms here supporting your bond issue. So Northland Securities They bid the lowest rate of 4.728571, and you can see the interest cost there of $139,020 was the low bid. So for this action item on the bond sale here, for the taxable series of bonds, you would be awarding to Northland Securities, Inc. at an average rate of 4.728571%.
Okay, do we hear a motion?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we award the $840,000 general obligation building bonds, federally taxable Series 25, to the lowest and best bidder, which is Northland Securities of Minneapolis, at a annual average interest rate of 4.728571.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Any questions? Vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. And adopt a resolution providing for the issuance.
Somebody else got it memorized?
I think since you've already got memorized.
Yeah, same thing here. Just authorizing the issuance of this other series of bonds, and so you just have to do the same action items, even though they're separate action items. It's the same. It's the same theme here. You're just formally authorizing the issuance of the taxable series of bonds now.
Okay. Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt a resolution providing for the issuance of the $840,000 general obligation building bonds, federally taxable Series 2025 by Independent School District. Did I mess up? By Independent School District number 2 of Tulsa County, Oklahoma, authorized at an election duly called and held for such purpose, designating bonds for certain provisions of the Internal Revenue Code, deeming preliminary official statement final for the purposes of SEC Rule 15C212, affirming the school district's intention to assist underwriters in complying with SEC Rule 15C212B5, prescribing form of bonds, providing for registration thereof, providing a levy of an annual tax for the payment principal of interest on the same, and fixing the other details of this issue.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions? A vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you all very much.
Zach, thank
I
you, and-
appreciate all of you.
Let me just add one thing too, that Zach is not only really good bond taker, he's a heck of a baseball coach. He took a team to Kansas City and won the whole stinking tournament up there over the weekend. So nice job, Zach.
Good job, Zach.
Okay.
Tonight, so I was thankful he was willing to get on the phone.
Okay. So does that bump us back up to student empowerment and staff empowerment?
It does, it does.
Okay.
I'll just start with hooray for the yearbook. Amy Pennington has done that role for several years now, and it's fun to see them featured in the portfolio by Varsity. They're the ones that kind of are responsible for and support us with lots of different things, but specifically their yearbook portfolio. So we get to showcase ours again. Those of you that came to the end of the year celebration, thanks I really appreciate your presence there. It means a lot to teachers to see you all there supporting them in the way that you do. Ms. Wagers, you did a great job speaking. They do need to hear from you all, but it's just fun. The retirees might be my favorite part just because it's years of experience that we get to appreciate. Summer programs have begun, you guys, and 21st Century is right on target as it was last year. Just so you all are aware, Ms. Smith and Ms. Conrad wrote an additional 21st Century grant, which we did not receive last year, but they're trying it again, specifically for Pratt Elementary. And we're trying really hard to get all of our 5 elementary schools to offer free after-school programs and during the summer to our students. Legislative wins, you guys, I don't get to say that very often, but it feels pretty good to say that occasionally. There's a couple things I'd like to scream about, but truly there were some things that we need to celebrate. And one, I went over these at our end of the school year meeting, but no naturalization tests for renewals of certificates. That's a big deal. Limiting State Board of Education's ability to revoke or suspend a teacher's license, huge deal. And then we just had information today that came out defining a little bit about chronic absenteeism, but we're not going to be using that for the report cards next year. It means bonus points, but it doesn't hurt us if we don't meet that metric. So some good stuff that happened. I think people are listening. If you had the time to listen to the end of the session Thursday night, Sine Die was Friday, but it got pretty interesting Thursday night pretty late, and so be worth going back and listening to the Senate hearings that day. So any questions about student staff empowerment? We're getting ready to see a whole bunch of teachers that are on the board agenda to hire tonight as well. So we'll move on to number
Resource
7.
innovation,
Yep.
yeah.
The good news in the budget this year is the $25 million that was added to the state aid formula to add steps to the teacher pay scale. That means Mr. Wine has some work to do in the next couple weeks, getting that to you guys by the July agenda. We approved the scale last month. It was our old scale, and we knew that there was a possibility that that would need to be corrected, and so here we are with that job. Financial report is kind of what it's been. I would comment in the income tax noted on the revenue report for fiscal year 25 is higher than we'll see for next year because of the tax cut that was legislated this year. There's a statement in that that link that you have that talks about collections being in jeopardy next year, because anytime you make a cut, then that means less revenue for the state to distribute for core services. So we'll see. I think it's important to note that Oklahoma does have the lowest per student spending in the region. I attached also a link to the OSSBA website. They do a great job of just compiling data so you can see where we are in the region. And once again, we are at the lowest in our region. So I'm including Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Texas, Arizona, all of our neighbors and our friends. Let's see. OSIG property.
Mr. Durkee, sharing that information with our legislative friends is always important as well.
Right.
So I appreciate the opportunity to do that. So every time we get a chance, let the legislators know that we appreciate what they've given us, but when you're the lowest in the region
Work
per
to be
student,
done.
and that's what we're all about as
Right.
kids.
Absolutely. I mean, we can go through the target of where we are educationally ranking according to, the powers that be with other states. But alongside that is funding, which correlates heavily with the ability to get services to kids and improve outcomes. So something we need to remember. We do have a couple of heroes in the Senate. If you listen to anything from R2 that are closely tied to Sand Springs Public Schools, and that's Todd Gallaher and Aaron Reinhardt. I think they did a good job promoting our cause. They stay close to the battlegrounds here at the district, so they know what's going on and they listen, which I've been really proud
Ask
about.
questions.
Absolutely, and they answer questions, absolutely. And they listen, that's a big deal. Last one I'd mention on this one out loud is our OSIG property and liability insurance renewal. We were down about 8% from last year. I hate to even speak this out loud, but right now we're in a really decent season for occurrences in Oklahoma. I'm going to say it really fast so it doesn't jinx us. But right now we're in a good frame. We debated, as you all know, I sit on the OSIG board, and we did the great debate about should we take the full deduction or maybe a little less than that, knowing that full well that might not be the case next year, but we really did advocate for as much as a reduction as we could get. So we're saving approximately $200,000 in terms of premiums that we thought we were going to have to pay that we're not. So that's a hooray, I think, as well. So any questions?
Number 8, district communication and community involvement.
Well, we do have the best communication director in the world. She's sitting in the audience and always has really great ideas. We've kicked around just how to communicate better I don't even know who threw this out, but a day in the life of, and we kind of started with pre-K, knowing we needed to really message out, it's time to enroll your child in pre-K, and we always try to up our numbers in the 4-year program, which is stellar, by the way. But after we started kind of thinking about how we promote our pre-K program, what if we did that with everyone? So that's something we're going to be working on next year. You name the kid, you name the program, the day in the life of, and Lisa kind of threw out, let's get a GoPro and hook it up. And anyway, it should be fun. We'd probably have to do a little bit of, clipping of the video with a GoPro and a kid, but it should, I think it's a good idea. Coffee with Cabin is really going to continue next year. There were some low attendance times, and that's okay, but it still gives people the opportunity to come talk to us, which is what we want them to do. So that we piloted it this year. I thought it was great. And of course, we're going to continue our podcast as well. Communication. We have getting ready to adopt a new system called eCadence. We're going to do a soft rollout because we know introducing new things to people sometimes can be a little bit nerve-wracking for folks, but Sean did a really good job this year of introducing a new system. He and Cassidy spent some time with OSSBA. We're getting it on the cheap, by the way. It's going to be super, super inexpensive because of the relationship with the OSSBA. But we tagged a few of our teachers that really fell in love with it. Katie Edmondson is one at Clyde Boyd Middle School that are willing to kind of take it on. So we're targeting ELA, looking at how they respond and students and parents respond to that mechanism. It's like a big bulk of systems wrapped into one, but essentially a learning management system that mimics what we do with Google Classroom. I don't know, Sean, if you want to expand on that at all.
So where systems like Blackboard or Canvas, if you've been familiar with those, if you've done any graduate studies that required online work, whereas they have a few more bells and whistles than Google Classroom, we'll get that capability, but we'll also get the capability of some added AI tools that our teachers have been asking for, and specifically English teachers have been asking for a dedicated plagiarism checker, and that's also built into this system. So it'll give our kids a more robust experience in terms of what online work is like, and that'll help prepare them as they go to university or community college or tech. So.
Very nice.
Turn me back on. So that's coming up next year with a small piloted group of folks. Anything else you have a question about? I'd be more than happy to answer. Okay.
Health and safety.
You bet. So district safety committee meeting is attached. That occurred on May the 8th. Again, Mr. Smith leads that committee. We're sending him to yet another national safety school training late July. Of course, the meeting would include any end of the year reminders about facility considerations, and right now is when, well, really before now, but our leaders have gone through their facilities to tag anything safety-wise that needs to be addressed this summer. And speaking of that, Mr. Clemens is in the audience. Where's he at? There he is. He has hit the ground running, and I'm just going to leave it at that, to be honest. As you know, coming in the summer and onboarding as your operations guy is a little daunting because that's when all the work happens. Currently, we're dealing with a gas leak at Angus and Northwoods. I can just say thank our lucky stars that it is now summer and the children are gone. What is it called, Chris? They came through the Northwoods parking lot with a what? A mobile sniffer. Apparently it's a thing. I'd never heard those words until he called today and said, guess what? So he's done a great job. We had a little bit of an alarm system thing this weekend. I know Bob Jackson needs a little credit because he's answering those alarm calls, but those go off, then everybody's alerted, and I think you spent the entire weekend, to be honest, working at somewhat, maybe longer than necessary. So thank you, Mr. Clemens. He's done amazing, considering the time of year that he has been onboarded. So any questions about health and safety related?
When you said he would hit the ground running, I'm just hoping he's running towards the problem instead of away from us.
Right. Well, so far so good.
So
I
good?
keep kind of checking in, like, you okay?
Gotcha.
Still okay? But he just takes it and goes.
Don't leave.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So thank you for that work.
Okay. Consent agenda.
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot new on the consent agenda. Oh, I did forget to mention employee wellness, which has nothing to do with the consent agenda, but the Employee Wellness Center will open up Monday. So we had a little heart-to-heart talk with our team, and if you drove up from the south end, which you probably didn't, they've fenced off the area so that staff can enter safely. So that communication, I think, went out this afternoon. We might get to open a couple of days early, but definitely back to normal hours, which feels fantastic. So for consent, really item number 15 is different only because Dakota Neely's receiving the stipend for the Safe and Healthy Coordinator through a grant that was written by Claudia Smith. So that looks different. It was Noel, obviously, last year. I always like to mention kind of the out-of-state travel, sometimes when it includes things that we don't ordinarily do. So item number 20, Charles Page Drama International Thespian Festival and Competition. Another program that just rocks it, as you all know. It was fun to celebrate our student this year that got to go to New York City, so always trying to do beyond. Item 23, I would bring that to your attention because Agape Outreach is getting ready to rent the auditorium at Clyde Boyd for yet an additional year. And then you'll see kind of a few items related to CAP. We do have a couple, well, just really Alicia's the new member, but Community Action Project is our long-standing relationship with our Early Childhood Center in CAP Tulsa, who runs a birth to 3-year-old program for those families that maybe have some greater need. Other than that, unless there's something, number 39 would be public notice for intent to apply for the 21st Century Grant. That's different than what, even though you saw it last year, we didn't get it, so it's application for a new one. Other than that, I think most things are things you've seen before unless you have questions.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm good. Okay, do I hear a motion? To approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, vote please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon, Wagers.
Aye. Okay. Sand Springs Public Schools operates under the School Budget Act. We are now required to conduct a public hearing on the budget. Does anyone wish to comment on the budget? If not, we will close the public hearing and the CFO will brief the board on the budget.
All right, so I'll go into a little bit more detail on Fund 11 just because there's a lot with it, and then we'll kind of cruise through the other funds, but if any point you want to stop me and ask a question, feel free. So on our general fund revenue, what we're projecting for the new year, we're looking at a slight bump in property tax revenue on the local sources of revenue up at the top. A little bit of a dip in interest earnings. Rates are kind of steadily decreasing after they blew up after the COVID year. They're kind of settling back down to what we would expect as somewhat of a new normal. And then reimbursements, which you'll find on source code 1500. We have a big discrepancy there, but that's mainly because we had a lot of E-rate revenue that was inflated in the old year that you see on 23-24, and then also on the second revised for 24-25. So that's kind of an anomaly for the past couple of years. We'll settle back down to around that 100,000 mark is what we're projecting. On intermediate sources of revenue, there's no appreciable changes there. Just ad valorem tax money comes in there, so very similar to the last couple of years. On our state sources of revenue, the largest difference here is on source code 3210. We're really tracking enrollment. You've heard Ms. Durkee talk about that quite a bit. That is the biggest source of revenue by far on our state sources. So we're projecting a dip there. That number will obviously change when we get actual numbers from the State Department in the early fall. So that's why we have a revision in September and then a second one late in the winter. The only other big change on state sources of revenue is 3438. This is the teacher empowerment program that Ms. Schlehuber worked hard on. That was kind of late in the ball game for the year, so that's not on. I mean, we didn't get it last year, and we didn't reflect it on the second revised. So you'll see that as an actual when we wrap up the year, and then we're applying for that, I believe, again this next year too. Down on federal sources, which are all the 4,000 levels, these are all ballpark best estimates until we get actual numbers, which don't come in well after we present and approve this original budget. So we think we'll fall somewhere close to this, but we'll know for sure when we do a revision in September.
Can
The
I
only
bring
other,
something to their attention too.
Yes.
When you see the revenue total, it's less than what it was. But if you look at line 4689, you're going to see miscellaneous sources of federal. And if you look at the first column, you see a $1.9 million infusion. That was what we called the COVID money, and it came in 3 big strands, but then there were some ancillary grants. But that's a big reason for the drop, just FYI, that's gone. Luckily for us, we didn't really use that when it was all said and done for any kind of recurring expenses. So, but that does show a decrease in the number of dollars.
yeah, that's the big part where we will see ourselves settle back to normal, is that federal money will probably be more consistent. I will say the encouraging piece of that is if you look at our very bottom line for total all sources of revenue, we have just a slight uptick from the actuals, even with that influx of federal money, and what we're projecting for the new year too. So we still kind of level out there, which is encouraging since our federal money dropped so much because of the COVID funds finally coming to an end.
I want to ask a question,
Absolutely.
Cassie, about the ad valorem revenue. Line 2100. I'm seeing that's an increase of about $100,000. Is that because of the added rooftops? I see a number of them going up in the Angus and Limestone area. Is that based on an estimate of when completion might be and when they get on the rolls, or?
It could be. I mean, we project on 2100, 2200, and on our property tax revenue, we project about a 3% increase. We've kind of been steady on that within our community. So we do that, and then when the estimate of needs comes back, we revise that.
Okay.
So could be, but they stay pretty steady. They just
Do you-
slowly climb.
Yeah, so when we're bond planning, Mr. Mullins, you get those net NAV list, and it gives you the historical data of net assessed value over time. And they fluctuate. I don't know that we've had a decrease a couple times, super slight, but we've had as high as a 7%. So when he says you kind of calculate a 3%, typically in Sand Springs, we get a 3%-ish growth of net assessed value. And it could be anywhere from the Chick-fil-A that goes in to some rooftops in the Angus area. It's all over.
Okay. We see a lot of rooftops going in at Angus, so.
We are, and then the new addition, time will tell. I mean, people kind of have questioned about, are you preparing for the rooftops that are going to go in? That's going to create an influx of kids coming in. We've been saying that for years, and I've yet to see that. I mean, like to a fault over time, like from the beginning of time. So we'll see. I mean, we're definitely planning for it. That was one of the reasons for the thought of purchasing property on the south side of the river in addition to, in case there was future growth. So you do the planning up front, but again, you base it on historical data. So.
Yeah, I think we settled at 3.5% last year, but until the county assessors relay that to our auditors, we really don't know an exact percentage increase on some of those line items. So we estimate about 3. The only other thing I would note is that on the carryover on source code 6000, we're projecting pretty close to last year. We intended to cut into that a little bit, which you can see with what we're projecting. When we had our stipends in December, our 5% stipends. So you'll see a decrease in carryover, but just know that that was intentional. We were planning on that to kind of settle back to a normal number. There are no questions, and we'll go to expenditures. So if you go line by line, these are very rough estimates. However, these numbers are based on where we are now in the current year. So basically, we'll take the encumbrances that we plan to spend in May. I can kind of see that data right now. It'll fluctuate a little bit, but we try to freeze everything up to get a picture of what the end of the year is going to look like and what next year might look like as well. So if you go line by line, these numbers will change throughout the year. But if you look near the bottom, we're projecting total expenditures around $46.5 million for general fund. If there aren't any questions, we'll go on to co-op. So co-op, our Fund 12, no big appreciable changes here. Total revenues are very similar to our second revised budget. The only, big difference, and it's not a big difference, but the only difference that you'll see is in the second revised column on source code 5000, you see a non-revenue receipt there. That was a deposit error from last year. So that's just where we went in and corrected that. So when you cross over fiscal years, that's the only way to represent that. It's basically a reimbursement to Fund 12. So as soon as we caught that, we reimbursed what was deposited in 11 that should have gone in 12. No, we actually checked with the auditors before we did that. So I assumed it was just a reimbursement across funds, but I wanted to make sure that that was how they saw it too. So on the expenditure side, there are no big changes here. Original budget expenditures are just based on, like I said, where we land right now with encumbrances and just the timing of when the original budget is due versus when we'll actually get actual numbers for those expenditures. So Fund 12 should look very similar from year to year, no big changes here.
I would add that our co-op, we have one program that runs co-op, that's it. We used to co-op with other districts and we would draw the funding and then we would be the lead agency that would disperse those funds, but now it's totally alternative ed, just FYI.
Yeah, so that's, you're looking at like 4281 up on the revenue code. So we used to allocate money to Fund 12, but now that is all in 11. I think that's what you're talking about, Ms. Turkey.
What's the co-op for the special services that we just added?
So I suppose you could consider it a co-op but I don't know that we're funding it that way. That they're paying for, it's more of an agreement, Mike. So when we allow a Pru kid or something to come into those, then we negotiate something that would help us fund the program, but we don't really call it a co-op.
No, we do an individual IEP service agreement for the specific student. So for example, this year a Berry Hill student came to us, and so the IEP service agreement that Berry Hill paid for a paraprofessional. So they paid a salary.
We've done that with a student who had a visual impairment at one point as well. And so coming in from, I believe it was Anderson back in the day, and they paid for, say, an orientation and mobility specialist. So that happens through an agreement, like a contract.
If there are no other questions on 12, then we'll go to Building Fund. So Building Fund has a lot of movement in it, from the actuals to second revision and then to the original budget when you look at revenue. So I'm just going to point out some differences there that kind of cause that fluctuation. So one of them is in 1140 up near the top. It says revenue from local governmental units. That's the $1 million contribution from the city. So you see that one-time contribution and actual revenue brought in last year, but then you see 0 and 0 from then on out, right? So I just wanted to make a note of that. The other one that kind of throws it off is on 1500. It's insurance loss recovery. That was our windstorm check that we originally had to pay some out of Building Fund as we were waiting on insurance. And so we reimbursed Building Fund for those expenses that came out of there. And at the end of the day, you're either paying it out of your insurance fund, which you don't have to have separate, or Building Fund. So other than that, state revenue is staying pretty steady there with Redbud funds. We're projecting about 1.6 million this year, and I would assume that would be pretty steady next year as well. On expenditures near the bottom, we've got 4,200 and 4,400 that I just want to make note of. 4,200 was our land acquisition from the Methodist property. So that's why you see it pop up in the second revised, but then zero out on the original. And then the improvement services so the improvement services on 4,300 and the building improvement services on 4,700, that's just for any type of expenses that we'll need to bring that property up to, that gym up to usable space, which will happen in the new year, so.
Maybe a small update about the gym too. You know, we talked about wanting to have that ready this summer. The understanding was, I think KKT thought that the timing was more important than the collegiate floor. And so that's going to get delayed, just so you all know that. But we've conveyed that messaging to our basketball coaches so they know. But we would rather do that right to begin with than do it quickly and not have what we want. So just know that that project's not going to complete as quickly as we were hoping.
Yeah. On 4,700 on the building improvement services, that number is a big number. I wouldn't expect it to be that big, but you don't really know until you actually dig into. If there's one thing we've learned with construction, you don't know until you actually get started with it. So I just tried to make that a bigger number so we had authority to spend. If there are no other questions, we'll move on to child nutrition. So the biggest change here is on source code 1710. That's student lunches. So you see a second revision of 6,000, and then you see an original budget of 360,000. That's where CEP falls, right? So we didn't have any revenue on that line item, and then now that we're going back to student lunches, student charges, we'll see that in there. The only other change we are anticipating is our prior year fund balance, which we've talked about and kind of prepped you all for. We see that declining a little bit, but we still have a healthy fund balance. It's just not sustainable to keep doing the CEP at that rate. So on the expenditures section, there's no material changes. It's just at this time, just a best estimate. We're going to be very close on expenditures and total revenue before carryover. So we'll track that throughout the year, though. Move on to bond funds. So bond funds, there are a few differences. The most notable is for the upcoming year. This is a timing thing. So we'll see source code 5112, which are the proceeds from the sale of bonds, increase substantially. In contrast, we'll see our fund balance decrease, but it's a proportional decrease because we will receive those new bond funds from the sale in July, and then we'll turn around at the end of this coming year and in June receive the new bond sales. So they're kind of lumped together. But it's a proportional change. So what you don't see in fund balance, you see in proceeds from the bond sales, and it's strictly a timing thing. As far as expenses, no big changes here, just estimating. A lot of these, they're earmarked for certain projects, but then we also have things that come up during the year. So just depending on what capital expenditures come up during the year, will depend on where those numbers end up. All right. Sinking fund, gift fund, and insurance fund. So sinking fund, nothing huge here. This is just our ad valorem tax levy. Zach Robinson from BOK, he's always kind enough to help project some of these numbers until we actually have the sale of the bonds. Once we receive our estimate of needs, we'll tie in with what the auditors calculate and then make sure that we have the correct authority to spend and pay those bond payments. Gift fund. no big changes here. I increased the bottom amounts. That's because, as we receive donations throughout the year, especially on the expense side, I want to be able to appropriate those in. So that's increased a little bit, but our gift fund stays pretty consistent from year to year. And then insurance at the bottom.
Hang on, Mr. Wine, mention the donors this year, because we've had 3 that have been decent donors.
Oh, yeah.
So you might talk about that, just so we can give them public recognition.
Yeah, so Mr. Noggle and his wife are one of the big ones. Sometimes that goes into our activity fund because they're activity fund projects, and so it's just easier for those groups to use. The Home, I believe, is another one that's going to donate a good chunk of money for our safety.
Car rider tags, which was kind of cool. They get to advertise a little, but the Home notoriously will give like $10,000 a year for school business.
And then Webco is the other one. I mean, every year Webco gives, I believe it's $30,000 to support some of our STEM.
And then LD Kearns this year is a new donor as well.
And then LD Kearns is a new one as well. It's kind of in a third-party holding place, so you don't see it on our budget. I don't even know what to compare it to because it's new, but yeah, LD Kearns gave a donation on New Year's Eve, I believe, at the very end of the year. So
For 30,000, correct?
Wow.
Yep,
So we
correct.
have some money coming in that people respect what we're doing. I mean, it's just when people are willing to donate to what your cause is, it means that you're doing a good job. I feel
Well,
like
it shows that our community is strong and they
Right.
support each other and they support our schools and, that's a great thing to have.
Agree.
Yeah, really cool to see. So just as we get new donations, I want to make sure that we have enough approved to be able to add those in. So, and then insurance should finally, as the actual for 23-24 drops off, we should get back to a new normal as long as we don't have any windstorms or anything again in the future. So if you see the actual for 23-24 at 1.5 million expenditures, and then you see 250,000 for the new year, that's what we hope it stays at. So,
Questions for Mr. Wine? You guys, this is the second original budget that you've done,
that's correct.
and it's been phenomenal considering last year's first original budget was 3 months in. So he needs a lot of kudos for what he has soaked in over the course of
Good job.
1 year, literally.
Thank
So-
you.
And
The-
I love your budget notes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The original budget last year, I believe I started on May 6th and presented on June 2nd. So
Correct. It's been a
I don't think it was
feat.
3 months.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Don't give him too much credit. He'll get a big head, but he's amazing as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, proposed approval of budget for 2025-26 fiscal year.
I will make a motion to approve the budget for the fiscal year of 25-26.
Second. Okay, a vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Okay, number 43, proposed approval of reemployment of recommended temporary teachers for 25-26 school year.
So those are folks a list compiled of people that are on temporary contracts. Ms. Arnold and Kim Clenny do a fantastic job of making sure those are correct. I mean, they're not, absent of mistakes sometimes, but for the most part, they are clean with those lists. So those are folks that are still continuing as temporary teachers for the 25-26 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve the reemployment of recommended temporary teachers for the 25-26 school year.
I'll second.
Vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Number 44, proposed approval of reemployment of recommended administrators, certified teachers, and support personnel for the 2025-26 fiscal year.
This would be folks who are on not a temporary contract that have been with us longer than 2 years. For certified, for sure. So I don't know if you want to elaborate at all, but that's a bigger list. Well, and remember I told you we get a few resignations dribbling in, so there could be an occasion where you'd see a recurring employee on that list that would resign later and we would rescind.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the reemployment of recommended administrators, certified teachers, and support personnel for the 25-26 fiscal year.
I'll second.
Thank you. A vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Okay, number 45, a proposed executive session to discuss temporary teacher recommendations for the 25-26 school year.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we move to executive session to discuss employment opportunities.
Okay,
I'll second.
vote, please.
Are you wanting 45 and 47? Temporary teachers and employment?
Yes,
47 is,
I think so.
yes, we put them both together, please.
Sorry about that. Vote, please. Oh, Alicia Spoon. Mrs. Spoon.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Sorry, I have to get all my. Six. Okay,
Oh, I thought it was 45.
that was executive session. We'll start at 46.
Start at 46.
Yeah. Okay, we are now in open session. The time is 8:31 p.m. While in executive session, the board discussed the following: temporary teacher and employment recommendations. No other matters were discussed and no votes were taken. So that puts us at number 46, proposed approval of employment of temporary teacher recommendations for the 25-26 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve the employment of temporary teacher recommendations for the 25-26 school year.
I'll second.
I will second.
Okay.
Somebody will second.
I wasn't even paying attention. I'm scooting
A
in my
vote, please.
chair.
Mullins.
Aye.
Hanlon.
Aye.
Spoon.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Okay, and we did 47 with 45, so number 48, proposed approval of employment recommendations for the 25-26 school year.
I will make a motion to approve the employment recommendations for the 25-26 school year.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, vote, please.
Mullins.
Aye.
Hanlon.
Aye.
Spoon.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Okay, number
Welcome,
14.
Mr. Douglas, welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome.
49, proposed approval of resolution of Sand Springs Public Schools to joining Oklahoma Schools Insurance Group, OSIG, for the 25-26 fiscal year.
Just to mention, so there's two OSIG items. The first one is to actually join and be a member. So you have to approve a resolution to actually join, and then we'll approve the insurance premium.
Okay,
Make a motion on item number 49 that we join the Oklahoma Schools Insurance Group for 25-26.
I'll second.
okay. Motion and a second, vote, please.
Mullins.
Aye.
Hanlon.
Aye.
Spoon.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. 50, approval. Is that right? Am I in the
For the
right spot?
actual premium of
Yes.
liability and
Yes,
property.
number 50.
I'll make a
Oh,
motion
no.
to
Yeah.
approve, this 50, to approve the renewal quote of property casualty liability and insurance with Insurica, Keystone Agency, Oklahoma State Insurance Group for the 25-26 fiscal year.
I'll second.
Okay, vote, please.
Mullins.
Aye.
Hanlon.
Aye.
Spoon.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.
Ms. Durkee, is there other insurance groups around at all anymore, or is this it?
Some larger districts will
Do
self-quote.
their own, sure.
The larger that aren't part of the OSIG group. We used to be the largest. We're not anymore.
Good.
And that's fine. The only danger is you take on the risk.
Right.
So, the tornado in Shawnee is an example, and they're, a little bit less than our size, and it was pretty devastating for just the reinsurance to incur those costs. So while we'd love to insure everyone, getting everyone on it would create a risk that would be devastating. So you have one tornado that rips through more, then it's a big deal to pay those off. So, although we do insure almost every district in the state now.
Okay, 51, proposed approval of renewal quote of workers' compensation insurance with Oklahoma School Assurance Group for the 25-26 fiscal year.
That's our workman's compensation package.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the quote for workers' comp insurance with the OSAG group for the 25-26 fiscal year.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second, vote, please.
Mullins.
Aye.
Hanlon.
Aye.
Spoon.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. 52, proposed approval of the 25-28 contract for Ms. Sherry Durkee, Superintendent of Schools.
Is it superintendent or algebra teacher? I'm not sure.
Both.
It's a
Both.
little about
Both?
icing
Okay.
trick.
Make sure.
She's up
Cassidy
there.
was pretty impressed. It's like, that's kind of.
She's CFO level.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the 25 through 28 contract for Miss Sherry Durkee, Superintendent of Schools.
I will second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Vote, please.
Mullins.
Aye.
Hanlon.
Aye.
Spoon.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Motion to consider the school district paying an employer pickup contribution to the teachers' retirement system, TRS, for administrators.
So there are two action items about teacher retirement. One is for administrators, one is for teachers. Unfortunately, those motions have to be read in full. We explained last year, this is actually the third year we've done these, because legally, in order for teacher retirement to consider those benefits that we pay into their total package upon retirement, it's important for the board to make this motion and approve these items. So the bad news is you have to read the entire motion for 53 and 54.
I'll do
Do
one.
you have to do them?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, I thought you had to do them for some reason.
You've got it memorized, then have at it, man.
I say go for it.
Okay, I'll do, which one?
53.
Is that the administrators?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion to effectively July 1st, 2025, that the school district commits to pay for each of its administrative staff who is classified as a 12-month employee or who is classified as a mandatory participant in the Oklahoma Teachers Retirement System. Such administrators' mandatory contribution to OTRS. I move that each administrator shall not have any right to make a cash or deferred election with respect to the contributions being paid by the school district pursuant to these resolutions that would otherwise be required to be paid by such administrators. I move that participating employees must not be permitted to opt out of the pickup contributions, i.e. the employee contributions which the school district is paying on their behalves, or to receive the contributed funds that constitute the pickup contributions directly instead of having those funds being paid by the school districts to OTRS.
That is a mouthful.
Very nice. I will second that motion.
You got the next one.
We have a motion and a second. A vote, please.
Mullins. Hanlon.
Aye.
Spoon.
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.
Can I ask Mr. Ryan if the dollars for this particular item was included as a line item?
Yes.
in the budget?
I don't, it's
Yeah,
a
it's-
benefit, so yes.
Yeah, it shows up probably in the 1,000 coding on expenditures on instruction. So the majority of it will show up there. And since our original budget is based on expenditures that we predict for this year, then that would be included.
It's in a function code, which is interesting. So they don't break it down by object, which is benefits. So you just see it in the primary function code, which is,
I just learned all of that, guys.
did you? The way you see it when you see the POs is different than the way we have to report it to the state, which makes it super confusing, in my opinion. But there are like 7, 8, 9 codes in OCAS, the OCAS manual for each expenditure. So coding can be the bane of our existence at some point in time. We think Beth's expert, to be honest, but she's shaking her head no. I'm not.
And the dollar amount for administrators, 7%. Astronomical 2% for the.
Well, there's very few of them. The realization is that almost every district in the state compensates administrators. It's kind of a little bit of a bump because of the hefty load the weight you bear with that, and so it's an incentive. It'd be far-reaching to find a district that didn't cover the employee portion of the retirement package.
Okay, number 54, motion to consider the school district paying an employer pickup contribution to teachers' retirement systems, TRS for teachers.
You have it. Go for it, Bucky.
Motion for teachers, I move effective July 1st, 2025, that the school district commits to pay for each teacher who is a mandatory participant in the Oklahoma Teacher Retirement System, OTRS, a 2% contribution of such teacher's mandatory contribution to OTRS. I move that each teacher shall not have any right to make a cash or deferred selection or election with respect to the contributions being paid by the school district pursuant to these resolutions that would otherwise be required to be paid by such teachers. I move that participating employees must not be permitted to opt out of the pickup contributions. In other words, the employee contributions which the school district is paying on their behalves, or to receive the contributed funds that constitute the pickup contributions directly instead of having these funds being paid by the school district to OTRS.
Thank you.
I will second.
Okay, motion and a second. Vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.
Did you write this, Cassie? Is that you? Okay.
Number 55, discuss, consider, and vote to approve or not approve the following items relative to the, oh, no, we already did this. I'm so sorry. Okay. 55 and 56? Okay,
57.
57.
57, so that would be the renewal of the sublease agreement dated July 19th. So anytime we do a revenue lease bond, we literally are paying a lease to the Tulsa County Industrial Authority until that bond's paid off. So you see in item number 57, that was the 2019 bond election that is paying for the Freshman Academy and STEM Center. So once that is finished, then we won't be leasing with the Tulsa County Industrial Authority. Same thing would apply to action item number 58. Notice that's 2024, so that would be because of the 2024 bond election for the sublease for Clyde Boyd Middle School, this project, and the press box. Those are the three major projects for that bond election.
Awesome.
Madam Chairman, item number 57, I make a motion that we approve the renewal of the sublease agreement dated June 1st, 2019 between the district and Tulsa County Industrial Authority for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 26, as required under the provisions of the agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Number 58.
I make a motion to consider and take action on a motion approving the renewal of the sublease agreement dated June 26, 2024 between the district and Tulsa County Industrial Authority for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026 as required under the provisions of the agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Number 59, proposed approval of revised policies to add to the district policy manual.
We're asking for a first read, not a first read, approval on these policies tonight. Letter A is really about season tickets and the change of the cost. Beth caught that one. We did not do this last year, but we are this year just to show in our policy how much season tickets are. B and C, we've kicked around as a leadership team for a while now. Originally, we were thinking that would be on, I think, the March agenda even. We pulled it off so that we could really make sure we're going through it with policy committee. It doesn't change a whole lot really with suspension of students other than we updated it, removed the list of things that they could do because it wasn't and could never be exhaustive, and made the process by which an appeal could happen much clearer in the language. The appeal process is exactly the same, but OSSBA had done a really great job of reducing the verbiage so that it was clean and streamlined so that people would have a better understanding of how, when I disagree with a suspension given by an administrator, how to appeal that. So, unless you have questions.
Do we have questions? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the revised policies in the district policy manual as listed on the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Ricky, I have one other question, not related to these, but are we working on a policy that the state's requiring us to have a cell phone policy?
Yes,
schools?
sir. In fact, I handed that over to Kim Clenny today. So what will happen, I don't remember the letters, do you, Kristen? The acronym, not acronym even, but how it's labeled. What's going to happen is we have, much like this is FOD and FODR, we have, I don't know what the letters are, but we have a policy and then a regulation that goes with the policy. What will happen is we'll rescind the regulation and then literally strike the existing cell phone policy and replace it with the OSSB current policy. And you'll see that next month in July.
Have
So-
you seen what OSSBA is proposing?
Oh, yeah, it's literally bell to bell. Essentially, kids can have them at school. We must have a policy that says, or at least requires us to have some sort of discipline if they have them out using them. There are exceptions, like for medical reasons, maybe a student has it to monitor diabetes levels or whatever. In the case of an emergency, so say there was some sort of like a tornado or something and there would be a need to use your cell phone. But mostly it's just bell to bell. During instruction, you're not allowed to have those out using them in class.
Are we anticipate having that in the July meeting or
yes.
second reading or final reading?
We can
That
do
way
it
it
as a
gets to the parents and the students earlier.
We could do it in a first reading and second reading, which means it's approved in August, which is fine. The problem is there has to be an addendum. Claudia is here. She's the one that handles student handbooks, so it would have to be appear in an addendum in each of their side handbooks, which might be kind of tricky.
Okay.
There's really no levity in terms of choices that you have in that policy because it is a law. The beauty is we could opt out next year. So it's a 1-year, quote unquote, trial period for districts to sample life without cell phones in class. So
Okay.
sometimes the legislature passed things that you can't really control. Yes.
I'm also kind of curious to hear what they say at COSA next week, in reference to it, if there's anything that we missed before we pushed it forward, or if somebody goes, wait a minute,
The policy was out pretty quick after the law was passed. I think they knew it was coming, so, I mean, it might change a little, but I suspect what it is what it's gonna be, so.
Any more
Good
questions?
question, though.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Can we vote, please?
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon, Wagers.
Aye. Number 60, proposed approval of Gary Watts contracts as a finance consultant.
I will,
Thanks. We don't even need to talk about it probably, but he agreed to stay on.
Nice.
He's an amazing guy.
Yeah,
He is.
he
And
is.
Yeah,
Very smart.
he helps in more ways than just finance consultant. I mean, there are a lot of contracts that we have ongoing, CAP being one of them, that will significantly change from a financial perspective than what it was when it started in 2010. And so he has historical knowledge that not many others have. So just, I mean, he's been a huge asset. I can't say enough good things about Mr. Watts, so.
He's a great guy.
Okay.
Mr. He, did you need to?
No, he said it all. He's also the dry sense of humor, you know, just, you almost pay him just for the quips that he
Yeah.
shares on a daily.
Yes.
And
I'm
he's
joking.
probably
He brings-
watching this right now.
He probably is, but I'm teasing. So Gary, if you're out there and you're watching, I'm joking. But he does bring a quality to our district that is unmatched, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve Gary Watts' contract as a finance consultant, June 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2025, and B, July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye. Okay, any matter not known about or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the posting for this meeting?
There is not.
Any announcements?
I have an announcement. I just want to congratulate our superintendent of
Yes.
the year in the
Yes.
state of Oklahoma. We recognize at COSA next week. And also our assistant superintendent of the year, which will also get recognized at COSA.
I'm not sure the same district has swept that ever, at least in my knowledge. They have not.
It can happen every year. Right
This is
here.
the last time you can do it with that, we too specifically, because once you win that, you can't win it again. So,
Very
no,
well deserved.
no repeats.
Both of you, very much so.
Very cool.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Hanlon,
Aye.
Spoon,
Aye.
Wagers.
Aye.